All right, here we go. We are talking about day 1, 6.1, line and angle relationships. Remember in class we had separated this into 2 separate days. We broke off parts just to make it a little bit easier to understand. The first word that we talked about in class, or the first word that we need to know, is complementary angles. We learned 2, complementary and supplementary. And really all it means is that you have 2 angles and you're going to add them together. For complementary, we want them to add together to be 90 degrees. 45 plus 45 is 90. Also, 80 and 10 is 90. I bet you could think of a few other examples, and I'll give you a minute to think about those. You can go ahead and hit pause. You could also come up with just a whole host of them. We can stick with some even numbers. 30 plus 60 would be 90. These 2 angles would be complementary. I know in class we had talked about a few, and 89 and 1, technically those would be complementary because they would add together to equal 90 degrees. So complementary angles are just 2 angles that add together to equal 90 degrees. Then we had supplementary. Supplementary angles are also 2 angles, and they add together, and I bet you can see where this is going before I even fill this in. The answer would be 180 degrees. Supplementary angles are 180 degrees. 70 plus 110 is 180. We could have 2 right angles, 90 degrees and 90 degrees. What I like that most of you already knew, or may already know, is the fact that if I was to take these 2 angles, and let's see if it lets me, and I was to slide them together, they're grouped together. Let's see if we can ungroup them really quick. But if I was to slide them together, you notice that, let's see, nope, that's not going to let me do that either. Alright, I was hoping maybe so. The lines on the bottom end up, there we go, making a straight line. And a lot of you already know, whether it's from your protractor, whether it's due to the fact that it cuts a circle in half, that a straight line makes 180 degrees. So no matter what 2 angles I add together, as long as they are adding together to equal 180 degrees, they are supplementary. Now, a common mistake is switching these 2 around. When do I know, if I don't have my notes in front of me, what's 90 degrees and what's 180 degrees? This is a little trick that I like to use. I know we all know the alphabet. You can sing your alphabets, and you know that C happens before S in the alphabet. And hopefully you know you're counting. And I don't expect you to count all the way up to 180, but hopefully you would know that when you count, 90 would come before 180. So now if I write these out, C stands for complementary. They both being the 90 and the complementary, occur before the S and the 180. The complementary and the 90 make a group, and supplementary and 180 make a group. The other information we talked about were vertical angles. Vertical angles are actually some of the easier angles out there to describe. They're right across from each other. 1 is right across from 2. And I know some of you are saying, but Miss Bender, that's horizontal. That's not vertical. I know, I get it. But if I flip this thing around, then suddenly it becomes vertical. That's just what we call these angles. They're vertical. They're right across from each other. 4 and 3 are vertical angles because they're right across from each other. 3 and angle 4. Angle 4 and angle 2 are not vertical though. Angle 4 and angle 2 are not vertical. Notice they're not across from each other. But we just talked about that just in the last slide. I want you to notice what these 2 angles make. Here's angle 2. Here's angle 4. Together, they add up and they make this straight line, which means these 2 are supplementary. So that's good to know. So here we have 2 vertical angles. The neat thing about vertical angles is that they're congruent. And many of you remember that from early in the year as well, but in case you have forgotten, congruent means having the same measure. The other congruence we talked about meant having the same side length, but in this case we're talking about the same measure. So angle 1, let's say, for instance, was 80 degrees. Well, then that is telling me that this is also 80 degrees because they're right across from each other. All right. So a lot of what we have to do at the beginning is to find the angle measurement that is missing. So in this particular example, I have these two angles, and I'm told they're supplementary. That's what I'm told. If I know they're supplementary, I know I'm going to add them together because that's what supplementary meant. Take your angles, angle 1 and angle 2, add them together, and that will equal 180 degrees. So that means I have to take angle X, this angle here, add it to 155, and that will equal 180 degrees. I told you they're never going away. They're always going to stay. I know a lot of you won't necessarily show your work, but it would be best if you did. You're solving for X. It's being bothered by the 155. I need to subtract by 155 on both sides, and X would equal 25. And in this case, since it's a measurement, it's 25 degrees. How about in this example? In this example, they are right next to each other, but it's still two separate angles. They make this straight line, plus the information told us they were supplementary. So I would have X plus 38, one angle plus the other angle, would equal a total of 180 degrees. Again, solving for X, what's bothering it? A positive 38. What's the inverse? Negative 38. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I will get 142. 142 degrees in this example. Let's try some others. In this case, again, just like the other chapter test taught us, we've got to be careful. Complementary. In this case, oh yeah, C, 90. C happens before S, 90 happens before 180. So I know that these need to add up to equal 90 degrees. So in this case, I have angle X plus 55 degrees equals 90 degrees because we're looking for complementary. I'm going to subtract 55 from both sides. And right away everyone says 45, 45, but you have to be careful. 5 plus 9, or I'm sorry, 5 plus 4 equals 9. Oh, we must have to go 10 less because these extra 5s here. So it happens to be showing here. There were more multiple choices, by the way, and 45 was one of them. Make sure you double check your work. But the answer here is 35. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit complicated here. And when I say complicated, it's just that there's a lot more information. Does not mean it's difficult. So let's look at this. A few things that I noticed right away. I noticed that I have this straight line. This straight line tells me that it's 180 degrees. I know this angle measurement and this angle measurement. This box means 90 degrees. So if this is 90 and this is 68, that means this whole thing right here is 90 plus 68, which is the same as 158 degrees. Now you might be thinking that I'm working a little bit backward here, but bear with me. So this entire angle is 158 degrees. If I know that it includes this to get me to this line of 180, well, now I just have a supplementary problem. X, actually we should call it a different name for right now, Y, right here, plus the 158 degrees created by these two angles equals 180. I'm going to subtract 158 from both sides. And I'll find out that Y equals, the 100s cancel out, and this would be 22 degrees. So some of you may be sitting there saying, okay, so now you've told me y, but that wasn't what the question was. The question said x, plus you've invented a new letter, thrown it in there, and really messed me up. Wasn't my intent. But look, these are right across from each other. And if they're right across from each other, they were vertical angles. And the beauty about vertical angles is that they're congruent. And if they are congruent, they have the exact same measure. So we know that x is the same as the y that we made up, and it's 22 degrees. So x equals 22 degrees. Let's look at another problem like that. Here we go. Nice. We know that this is 90 degrees and that this is 70 and that this entire thing should be 180. I'm going to set this one up a little differently this time, but hopefully you'll be able to follow along. X plus 90 plus 70 equals 180. Where did I get that from? This angle is x plus this angle, which is 90, plus this, which is 70. And all of these lie on this line should equal 180 because a straight line is 180 degrees. These are already in order, so I don't need to use the commutative property at all. 90 plus 70. 90 plus 70 is 160. So I have x plus 160 equals 180. Railroad tracks. Subtract 160 from both sides, and I find that x equals 20 degrees. All right. This looks worse than the other problems, but it's not. It's all about reading. Can you read what they're asking? You'll find this fancy little m, and that is just standing for measure, measurement. What is the measure of angle, so as long as you can read the math, of angle QWT? Make sure you follow the exact order that they have it listed in. Don't make up your own order, because you could possibly, depending on what we're talking about, you could possibly create something that's not intended. QWT starts here, goes here, and goes here. They want to know what is the measurement of this angle. So I know your eyes are probably doing some goofy things on you right now, and you're seeing all these different things hanging out, and what do? Let's make it just a little bit easier. I'm going to show you this in case you didn't see it. This is a straight line. This straight line is made up of this angle and this angle. This is the one we're trying to find. This is the one that we know. A straight line will make 180 degrees, and in this case that's created by taking 150 plus our unknown. And from here we could subtract 150 from both sides, and we'll find that x equals 30. So our missing angle here is 30. We're going to leave that there for a minute just to see if it happens to be helpful on any other problems. Let's look at SWP. SWP. All right, this is interesting. I need to find this now. Let's see if I can get this line out of the way. Okay. So now we need to find this angle, and if you're paying attention, if you're looking close enough and your eyes are awake, you'll see, oh wait, these are vertical. So this must also be 30 degrees. And then it's going to ask us for QWP. QWP, well that's already given. It's already 150 degrees. Whoops, sorry. And then the last is SWR. SWR. There are multiple ways that we could do this. First, if these are vertical, if this one right here and this one right here are vertical, then this here and this here would be vertical. And if they're vertical, they equal the same. And we would solve that and find the missing side. I will really quick write the assignment down, but it tells me that I'm out of time. So your assignment is page 309, 5 through 9, 18 through 25, 28 through 35, 37, and 38. Now that we're back in the book, please do not be afraid to check your answers in the back, the odds, and make sure you're doing it correctly. I hope that helped. Have a great evening.